Hi and welcome to MC Webinars. We're really happy to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. We are discussing, as usual at the moment, about local disruption and re-emerging demand after the lockdowns. And so we're joined today by Karla Hoff, who is the Account Director for MZFE, who will be going through how this basically relates to your business. We will have questions at the end of the presentation, so please put them in the questions box on your control panel and we'll endeavour to get back to those. And we will also be sending out a follow-up email, so keep your eyes open for that, and that will have the recording and the slides in it, so you can share that with colleagues or you can just revisit the webinar again. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to you. Hi, Karla.
Morning, Debbie. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. I hope you are all enjoying the sunshine wherever you are. I'm up in Leeds and it is another gorgeous day here. So thanks for joining us this morning. Just a 30-minute kind of overview, I suppose, of re-emerging life post-COVID, looking at some of the challenges that the education provider market is facing, looking at the labour market headlines as the economy starts to open up, and then really kind of deep diving into locally and what's next and where do we go from here. So for those of you who don't know us, a really brief overview to MZ, who we are and what we do. So we are labour market specialists. It's our mission at MZ to help people make better decisions relating to the world of work. We do this by providing comprehensive labour market and skills data to our customers so that they can make more informed decisions to the world of work that will support their business and in turn the individuals within that local economy. So that person can be anyone from the individual learner, you as an education provider, or the employers who are seeking those skills. So we want to connect those three people through the common language of skills. And we hope that by using robust local labour market insight, you as providers are able to give individuals the skills that the local employers are demanding. So as things start to open up across the economy, really just wanted to kind of have a little chat about what the key issues are, and obviously aside from kind of AEB allocation, the ROTAP re-registration, but I think something that we're all looking at or talking about is the FE Skills White Paper. So this really has been a call to ensure that provision is supporting the economy and is responsive to the local labour market needs as things start to kind of reopen post-pandemic and after the last 18 months that we've just had. So once again, I think it's that age-old focus of employers being at the heart of the system. And what it's really looking to do, I think, is to ensure that the education and training of learners fills those skills gaps and improves productivity locally. So what we're getting then going forward, we should expect to see this rollout of an evidence-based assessment of skills needs from local employers, and then this introduction of the LSIPs. So I saw recently in the AUP kind of roundup that there's a huge debate around the LSIP process at the minute, really kind of questioning how exactly the process might work, whether they are intended to be all-inclusive of ITPs, or is it predominantly FE college-led, and also whether they'll be inclusive of all provision or whether they're sector-specific. So any feedback on this and your kind of views on the FE white paper would be great at the minute. But I think the overarching message within the sector is the need to adapt. So across all ITPs, FE colleges, but in general, surviving change and kind of rebuilding the economy. So providers are now looking to examine the way that they're currently doing things and ask whether they're still fit for purpose post-pandemic, and whether they really understand the dynamics of the employers that they're working with or seek to work with as they look at kind of growth strategies and moving forward. A lot of the employers, a lot of the providers that we're talking with at the minute are really kind of, what do we need to include in that growth strategy over the next 5 years? What are the recovering sectors and how do we need to diversify and kind of adapt to economy needs after the pandemic? So what I suppose we want to do is to help you get a real handle on, one, the current provision that you offer and how that's aligned to your delivery areas, and then two, what the skills demand within those regions are that you work in and who are the employers asking for those skills. And labour market data and skills data can really help us do this. So by looking at that data for the delivery areas or the regions that you work with, can start to answer some of the questions that kind of on the screen. So what are those recovering sectors within those target areas? So we know that UK-wide, the skills and jobs demand will be very different to some of the local areas. What's happening in the northeast will be very different to the southeast, but you guys as providers often work across a whole range of different localities. So key is in the kind of detail and the granularity of that data. So what are the in-demand skills? So it's great looking at jobs or occupations or SOC codes as we know them, but skills demand is also more important than ever now, thinking about reskilling, kind of moving jobs for individuals and really kind of looking at those short, sharp courses that can help rebuild some of the unemployment around the area. Looking at what you're offering right now and how does that fit the skills gaps, and if not, how do we know where to kind of diversify and adapt? And then looking at employer engagement, we've just talked about that need for really having a handle on employer skills needs, what companies are hiring right now and what for. So having that data is then only going to strengthen those conversations once you've got the right offer on the table. So really wanted to just use the next 20 minutes to just look at some of the data then. So a really broad kind of overview of what's happening nationally, and then we'll have a bit of a deep dive into some local data. So let's have a look at some of that, that data for kind of UK-wide. On the screen, we've got an overview of job postings and claimant counts. So two indicators of kind of growth or decline across the country from December 2019 to June 2021. So 18-month period, December from kind of month before post-pandemic right up to present day. And if we look at an overview of all the job postings then, what we can see is exactly what we'd expect. So job postings is a really good way to indicate rise or fall. We've got that traditional structural labour market data, but this is all based on kind of trends and projections, whereas job postings shows what's happening on the ground right now. So we see big decline from March to about mid-May, where we would expect of 2020 when the pandemic hit. And then again, when we had that second lockdown, January, February time of 2021. But we're seeing a really nice increase in job postings and activity over the last kind of 3-4 months, which is great to see. Corresponding graph then, we've got kind of claimant counts on the right. So as you would see, a great big fall here. In job postings, we're seeing a huge rise in claimant counts here. Kind of up and down for the majority of the pandemic. We've got furlough to consider in there as well. But then again, a little bit of a rise when we had that January, February lockdown. And then nice to see a little curve of decline here as people start getting back into work and stop claiming for unemployment there. So overall job postings and claimant counts, great. So what are some of those in-demand occupations then based on new job postings? So looking at March, we saw those kind of those supporting occupations, so nurses, education, teaching professionals, care workers and home carers and van drivers. So things that we've expected to see rise or be in demand over the pandemic. But we're also seeing things like sales accountants, second from top, program and software development professionals. So this is nice to see because we're seeing an increase in some of those different occupations on the rise as companies start to change their ways of working and kind of adapt post-pandemic. So we've done some analysis recently or some work on separating out those skills that are being requested within those job postings into high and middle skilled or service orientated and labour intensive jobs. So what are the skills that are being requested within each of these kind of categories? You might have seen this on some of our blog pieces if you're kind of up to date with what we put out, but really good overview of what we're seeing within those high skilled type occupations. So very, very software development focused, cybersecurity, Microsoft Azure, scalability, full stack software, so very software engineering heavy. So again, a really good indicator of overall across the country in those high skill jobs, what are the skills that are being demanded? Again, service orientated, so looking at the service industry, vaccination, PPE, caregiving, and safeguarding are the skills that are at the top there. And then we can also look at labour intensive jobs. So one area that's grown massively in this pandemic period is the warehousing and logistics kind of area. So again, reflecting on the way that the country spending habits have changed, the way that companies are starting to grow and adapt and people move to a different way of working. Reflective in kind of this very much the slide. We're seeing a huge demand nationwide for skills such as things like flatbed, not flatbread, truck operation, stock management, and then things like packaging and labeling. So all very service in labor intensive type industry, but just a really good overview. Once you're thinking about different sectors or the different areas that you work in, these are a really good indicator of kind of what skills are really important in some of those different types of work. So all of that is a really good overview of what's going on nationally and looking at the UK. But as we know, you guys will work across lots of different regions, your delivery areas will be different. You really need to kind of have a handle on what's going on within the regions that you serve and think about how your offer might be different within these regions. So going to have a look at some local data. So I have chosen East Riding of Yorkshire, that's where I'm from. So East Riding of Yorkshire, a little bit of an overview of the unique job postings within the last month. So I've just chosen June. So within June, there was just under 5,000 unique job postings. These are job postings on the internet. It's a scrape of the internet and it gives us a really good indicator of the kind of market as we see it. So who's hiring? Just under 5,000 unique job postings, so actual jobs we think. This number is much higher and much noisier, but what the tool is able to do is kind of take out those deduplications. So what this data then starts to be able to tell me is what the hiring landscape's looking like, who's hiring and what type of jobs for. So within East Riding of Yorkshire, within those about 5,000 jobs, we're seeing a huge demand for support workers, care assistants, warehouse operatives and delivery drivers. So again, this region is very much reflective of the UK in the pandemic, but in other areas it could be completely different. Teaching assistants is kind of in there, but we're also seeing some things like electricians, cleaners and kitchen assistants, so showing us a bit of a demand for new types of occupations. This is just 1 month's worth. 3 months will give us a very good or a very different insight, but it's a good indicator of what's going on the ground now within the region as we start to think about what our target areas might be. Thinking about skills then. So from those 5,000 job postings in the region in June, we're able to pick out the top hard skills and softer type skills that those job postings are asking for. So at the top, we're seeing personal care, auditing, PPE, mental health and warehousing. So these are the harder type skills. On the softer type skills, we can think about communication and customer service, management, sales. So a really, really good tool to think, right, what do we currently offer? Is this in line with the skills demand within the region? And then I suppose lastly, top companies posting. So who are the companies within that region who are hiring most heavily at the minute? We've got companies like Yorkshire Council, East Riding Yorkshire Council up at the top with Checker Trade, NHS, which is reflective of kind of the health and social care at the minute, but we've also got Aldi and Howden, so a couple of more kind of warehousing and logistics and retail type areas. What we can also do as well is just run a blanket search on companies that you work with. So as you start to talk to employers about skills needs and kind of go back to what that FE white paper set out about really understanding the dynamics of employers, really looking to kind of have a clear understanding of that employer skills need. I think employers need to be at the heart of the system, and we need to ensure that there's an evidence-based assessment of the skills needs from the local employers. This type of information is really, really helpful in saying, this is what we offer. These are the kind of the skills alignments, and this is where we set to go. A really kind of good training needs analysis for any companies that you work with. So that's kind of a bit of an overview of what I wanted to talk about today. I did say it would only be kind of a high level overview today, but I suppose the next steps and going forward, it's really about kind of understanding where your recovery sectors are within the areas that you work with, and where you need to kind of adapt. So really, really, really keen to have a chat with you and just understand those challenges and priorities that you're facing at the minute, and just jump into the tool and have a look at some of the data for your area. So I'd love to kind of book in 20-minute slots with you where we can just start to look at some of the occupations that are growing in terms of those kind of standard occupations, and then look at some of the job titles and the skills around that. So yeah, really keen to kind of hear from you guys. And Debbie, do you have any questions?
No, we don't, Karla, but that was really, really good. And yeah, like you said, it's about how this data is relating to supporting the independent training providers, and it's really interesting going forward to see how we learn more and more about how EMSI can support our training providers. So yeah, thanks for that, Karla.
Absolutely, great. And just on a side note, we've just launched our green reports that can be accessed on the website. So a bit of an overview of green jobs demand within the regions that you serve, what that looks like, what that means. We've got a second webinar coming up shortly around that, or I think it might be the third actually, and there is a request a report box on our website. So also just another couple of things that you can get your hands on to try and make that that forward planning a little bit easier. So really keen to hear from you all. Thanks for joining this morning. You will get the slides and the recording, is that right, Debbie?
Yes, in a follow-up email, and I'll put the link to the green reports as well in there for you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, thanks ever so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.